John Carter was a man who preferred the quiet life. He lived in a small town surrounded by rolling hills and thick forests, where everyone knew each other's names but rarely pried into one another's business. It wasn't glamorous, but it suited him just fine. John worked as a mechanic at the local garage, fixing cars and trucks for people who depended on their vehicles to get through the day. His hands were calloused from years of hard work, and his face carried lines that spoke of both laughter and loss. But despite the wear and tear life had left on him, there was a warmth in his eyes when he looked at his daughter, Lily. Lily was 12 years old with a mop of curly brown hair and an imagination that seemed endless. She loved stargazing more than anything else. Every clear night she would climb onto the roof of their modest home with her telescope and sketchbook, mapping out constellations and dreaming about what might be out there beyond Earth. To her, the stars weren't just distant points of light. They were promises of adventure, mystery, and discovery. John didn't share her fascination with space, but he admired her passion. He often teased her about becoming an astronaut someday, though deep down he hoped she'd stay close to home. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Lily sat perched on the roof as usual. Her telescope was pointed toward the heavens and her pencil moved swiftly across the pages of her notebook. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of pine from the nearby woods. Everything felt peaceful, until something unusual caught her attention. A bright streak of light zipped across the sky, moving faster than any meteor she'd ever seen. It didn't fade away like most shooting stars. Instead, it curved sharply downward and disappeared behind the trees in the distance. "Dad!" Lily called out excitedly, scrambling off the roof and rushing inside. "You have to come see this." John was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping a cup of coffee while flipping through a car magazine. He glanced up as his daughter burst into the room, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "What is it now?" he asked with a chuckle. "Did you spot another alien spaceship?" "No, seriously," Lily insisted, grabbing his arm. "There was this weird light in the sky, and it went behind the woods. We should go check it out." John hesitated. The woods weren't exactly dangerous, but they weren't safe either, not at night anyway. Still, seeing how eager Lily was, he couldn't bring himself to say no. "All right," he said finally, setting his mug down. "But we're not going too far in, okay? And we'll take flashlights." The pair gathered their gear and headed out. The walk to the edge of the woods was short, and the moonlight illuminated their path well enough. As they approached the tree line, Lily's enthusiasm grew. "Do you think it could have been a UFO?" she asked, her voice tinged with wonder. "I think it was probably just a satellite or something," John replied, though even he sounded unsure. There was something strange about the way the light had moved. Too fast, too deliberate. When they reached the spot where the light had vanished, they found signs of disturbance. The ground was scorched in patches, and scattered around were fragments of what looked like metal, but unlike any metal John had ever seen. It shimmered faintly under the moonlight, almost as if it were alive. Lily knelt down to examine one of the pieces, her fingers brushing against its smooth surface. "This isn't normal," she murmured. "It feels weird." Before John could respond, a sudden flash of light engulfed them. It was blinding, forcing them to shield their eyes. When the brightness faded, John blinked rapidly, trying to regain his vision. That's when he realized something was wrong. Lily was gone. "Lily!" he shouted, panic rising in his chest. He spun around, searching frantically for any sign of her. "Lily, where are you?" There was no answer, only an eerie silence that pressed down on him like a weight. The forest seemed darker now, the shadows deeper. John's heart pounded as he called her name again and again, but all he heard in response was the sound of his own voice echoing back at him. Then, faintly, he noticed a low hum coming from somewhere within the trees. It was barely audible, yet it sent chills running down his spine. Desperate, John followed the sound, stumbling over roots and rocks as he pushed deeper into the woods. His mind raced with questions. What had happened to Lily? Where had she gone? Was she hurt? The thought of losing her made his stomach churn. Finally, exhaustion overtook him and he collapsed to his knees, clutching his head in his hands. Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered her name one last time. He wasn't sure how long he stayed like that, but eventually, he became aware of a soft rustling sound nearby. Lifting his head, he squinted into the darkness and saw a faint glow emanating from between the trees. It pulsed rhythmically, almost hypnotically, drawing him closer despite his fear. Slowly, he got to his feet and staggered toward it. When he reached the source of the light, he froze. The clearing was empty save for a single object, a metallic sphere hovering silently above the ground. Its surface rippled like liquid, reflecting the dim starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Around it, the grass was blackened and charred as though burned by some intense heat. John stared at it, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. Whatever it wasn't human-made. A wave of dizziness hit him then, and before he could react, everything went black. When he came to, he was lying near the edge of the woods, the first rays of dawn breaking through the trees. For a moment he wondered if the entire night had been some bizarre dream, but as he sat up and looked around, reality crashed back down on him. Lily was still missing. Over the next few days, John searched tirelessly for answers. He reported her disappearance to the police, but they were skeptical of his story about the strange light and the mysterious object in the woods. Without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. Friends and neighbors offered their condolences, but John could see the doubt in their eyes. They thought he was imagining things, or worse, hiding something. But John knew what he had seen, and he refused to give up. Determined to find his daughter, he began digging into anything he could find about UFO sightings and unexplained phenomena. He scoured the internet late into the night, reading forums and watching grainy videos uploaded by amateur investigators. Most of it seemed ridiculous, but some stories struck a chord with him. People talked about abductions, experiments, and encounters with beings that defied explanation. Could Lily have been taken by aliens? The idea sounded absurd, yet it was the only lead he had. Eventually, his search led him to a name: Rachel Monroe. She was a journalist known for her work covering paranormal events and conspiracy theories. Though many dismissed her as a crackpot, others credited her with uncovering truths that mainstream media ignored. John reached out to her, explaining his situation and sharing details about the night Lily disappeared. To his surprise, Rachel agreed to meet with him. Their conversation took place in a dingy diner on the outskirts of town. Rachel was younger than John expected, with sharp features and an air of skepticism that softened slightly as he recounted his story. She listened intently, occasionally jotting notes in a worn notebook. When he mentioned the metallic debris and the glowing sphere, her expression changed. "That matches descriptions I've heard before," she said quietly. "People who claim to have encountered these beings often describe similar objects." John leaned forward, desperation etched on his face. "Do you think you can help me find my daughter?" Rachel hesitated, then nodded. "I can try, but if what you're saying is true, we're dealing with something far bigger than either of us understands, and it's not going to be easy." For the first time since Lily's disappearance, John felt a flicker of hope. If anyone could help him unravel the mystery, it was someone like Rachel. Together, they vowed to uncover the truth, no matter where it led them. Little did John know this journey would force him to confront not only the unknown but also the hidden strengths within himself. John and Rachel's partnership marked the beginning of a journey neither of them could have anticipated. After their meeting at the diner, Rachel wasted no time diving into the details John had provided. She cross-referenced his account with similar reports from across the country, piecing together a pattern that sent chills down her spine. The stories were eerily consistent: strange lights in the sky, mysterious disappearances, and sightings of otherworldly beings. It wasn't just Lily who had vanished. Dozens of others had gone missing under similar circumstances. Rachel shared her findings with John during their second meeting, this time in her cramped apartment filled with stacks of books, old newspapers, and maps pinned to the walls. "It's not random," she explained. pointing to clusters of incidents on a map spread across her table. These abductions are happening in specific areas. There's a method to it, like they're targeting certain locations. John frowned, tracing the markers with his finger. What do these places have in common? That's what we need to figure out, Rachel replied. But one thing is clear, they're not human. Whatever took Lily isn't from here. The words hung heavy in the air. John felt a mix of fear and anger bubbling inside him. He didn't want to believe aliens were real, but the evidence was hard to ignore. If they had hurt his daughter, he would stop at nothing to bring her back and make them pay. Their investigation led them to a remote area several hours away, where another abduction had been reported just days earlier. The victim was a young man named Daniel, who had been hiking alone when he vanished without a trace. His friends found his backpack abandoned near a rocky outcrop, along with burn marks identical to those John described seeing in the woods. Local authorities dismissed the case as a possible animal attack or a hiker lost in the wilderness, but Rachel suspected otherwise. When they arrived at the site, the atmosphere was unsettling. The air felt colder than it should have, and an unnatural stillness blanketed the landscape. John and Rachel searched the area carefully, collecting fragments of metallic debris that matched what John had found near his home. As they worked, Rachel noticed something etched into the rock face, a series of symbols unlike any language she'd ever seen. They glowed faintly under the sunlight, pulsing with a rhythm that made her uneasy. "This confirms it," Rachel said, snapping photos of the markings. "We're dealing with something intelligent, something advanced." John clenched his fists, frustration boiling over. "Advanced doesn't mean invincible. We need to find out where they took her and how to get her back." As they packed up their gear, a rustling sound drew their attention. Emerging from the shadows was an older man with wild gray hair and a scruffy beard. He introduced himself as Samuel Brooks, a former scientist turned recluse. Samuel claimed to have spent decades studying extraterrestrial phenomena after witnessing an alien craft crash land in his youth. Though skeptical at first, John and Rachel listened intently as he revealed chilling insights about the beings responsible for the abductions. "They're not explorers or diplomats," Samuel warned, his voice low and urgent. "They're predators. Their purpose here isn't peaceful, it's parasitic. They experiment on humans to understand our biology, our weaknesses. Most of the people they take don't survive." John's stomach churned at the thought of Lily being subjected to such horrors. "Why haven't we heard about this before? Why hasn't anyone stopped them?" Samuel sighed, shaking his head. "Because they're careful. They erase memories, cover their tracks, and leave behind only enough evidence to fuel speculation. Governments know about them, but they keep quiet to avoid panic. To the public, these stories are just myths," Rachel interjected, her tone sharp. "So what do we do? How do we fight something like that?" Samuel hesitated, then reached into his bag and pulled out a small device resembling a metallic cube. "This is all I've been able to salvage from my research. It's a prototype designed to disrupt their technology, or at least interfere with it. But using it comes with risks. You'll need to get close to their ship, and even then there's no guarantee it'll work." John stared at the cube, determination hardening his features. "If it gives us a chance to save Lily, I'll take it." With Samuel's guidance, they began planning their next move. The scientist explained that the aliens' ships often return to the same locations, drawn by magnetic anomalies beneath the Earth's surface. By tracking these hotspots, they might be able to locate one of their vessels. Rachel suggested starting with a mountain range known for its unusual geomagnetic activity, a place locals referred to as the Devil's Ridge. Legends spoke of strange occurrences there, including livestock mutilations and eerie lights in the sky. The trio set out early the following morning, driving toward the ridge in Samuel's old pickup truck. The journey was long and grueling, winding through narrow dirt roads and dense forests until they reached the base of the mountains. From there, they continued on foot, carrying minimal supplies to avoid drawing attention. The terrain grew increasingly treacherous as they climbed higher, jagged rocks and steep cliffs testing their endurance. As night fell, they set up camp in a shallow cave overlooking the valley below. The temperature dropped rapidly, forcing them to huddle around a small fire for warmth. Despite the biting cold, None of them slept easily. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves sent their hearts racing, their imaginations conjuring images of the creatures lurking in the darkness. Around midnight, a low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. John recognized it immediately, the same sound he'd heard the night Lily disappeared. His pulse quickened as he nudged Rachel awake. Together they crept to the mouth of the cave and peered outside. Hovering above the ridge was a massive object, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. Lights pulsed along its edges, casting an ethereal glow over the surrounding landscape. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. John felt a surge of adrenaline as he realized they had found what they were looking for, the aliens' ship. "Stay here," he whispered to Rachel and Samuel. "I'm going closer." "No way," Rachel shot back, grabbing his arm. "You're not doing this alone." Before John could argue, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A beam of light shot down from the ship, illuminating a clearing nearby. Figures emerged from the vessel, tall and insect-like, their movements unnervingly fluid. They communicated through telepathic pulses that resonated in John's mind, causing waves of nausea and confusion. He staggered backward, fighting to stay focused. "They're scanning the area," Samuel hissed. "We need to hide, now." Three of them retreated deeper into the cave, holding their breath as the aliens passed within meters of their hiding spot. When the coast was clear, John turned to Rachel and Samuel, his expression grim. "We can't wait any longer. Tomorrow night we go in." Rachel nodded, though fear flickered in her eyes. "And if we don't come back?" "We will," John said firmly. "For Lily." The rest of the night passed in tense silence. None of them dared to sleep, knowing that failure meant more than just losing their lives. It meant leaving Lily, trapped in the clutches of monsters who saw humanity as nothing more than lab rats. As dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, John made a silent vow. No matter what happened, he would find his daughter, and the aliens would learn the hard way that hurting her was the worst mistake they could have made. The plan was simple but dangerous. John, Rachel, and Samuel waited until nightfall before making their move toward the alien ship. The air was thick with tension as they crept through the rocky terrain, their footsteps muffled by the soft soil. Each of them carried a small backpack filled with essentials: food, water, flashlights, and the prototype device Samuel had brought. None of them spoke much. The weight of what they were about to attempt hung over them like a storm cloud. When they reached the base of the ridge where the ship had landed, they stopped to observe it from a safe distance. The craft loomed above them, its surface shimmering faintly in the moonlight. It looked alive, almost organic, shifting subtly as though breathing. Lights pulsed along its edges, casting an eerie glow that made everything around it seem surreal. John felt a chill run down his spine, but he pushed the fear aside. He couldn't afford to hesitate, not when Lily's life depended on him. "Remember the plan?" Samuel whispered, clutching the metallic cube tightly. "We get inside, find Lily, and use this to disrupt their systems long enough for us to escape. But we have to be quick. If they catch us—" He didn't finish the sentence, but no one needed him to. They all knew the stakes. Nodding silently, John led the way, moving cautiously toward the ship. The closer they got, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. A low hum vibrated through the ground, making their teeth ache. It was disorienting, like being caught in some invisible web designed to confuse and paralyze. Reaching the entrance wasn't easy. The ship didn't have doors in the traditional sense, just smooth, seamless walls that seemed impenetrable. However, Rachel noticed faint lines running along the surface, forming patterns that resembled the symbols Samuel had shown them earlier. With trembling hands, she traced one of the lines, hoping it might trigger something. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, part of the wall dissolved into a glowing portal, revealing a dark corridor beyond. John exchanged a glance with Rachel and Samuel before stepping inside. The interior of the ship was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The walls were smooth and metallic, pulsating gently as if alive. Strange machines lined the hallway, humming softly and emitting faint glows in various colors. The air smelled sterile, almost chemical, and it was cold enough to make their breath visible. Every step echoed unnaturally, amplifying the sound of their movements. "This place gives me the creeps," Rachel muttered under her breath, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. "It's like walking into a nightmare." John nodded, but kept moving forward. Time was running out, and they couldn't afford to waste a second. As they ventured deeper into the ship, they began to notice disturbing signs of activity. Along the walls were tubes filled with strange fluids, each containing human bodies suspended in stasis. Some of the figures appeared unharmed, while others were grotesquely altered, limbs elongated, skin pale and translucent, eyes disturbingly large. John's stomach churned at the sight, but he forced himself to keep going. One of those bodies could be Lily. "Over here," Rachel suddenly whispered, pointing to a chamber ahead. Through a transparent barrier, they could see rows of tanks, each holding a person. John rushed forward, scanning the faces desperately. His heart leapt when he spotted her. Lily, unconscious but seemingly unharmed, floating in one of the tanks. Tears welled up in his eyes as relief washed over him. "I found her," he said hoarsely, placing his hand against the glass. "She's alive." Before they could celebrate, however, the ship trembled slightly and a loud screech reverberated through the halls. The aliens had detected intruders. Within moments, the insect-like creatures appeared, their elongated limbs clicking ominously as they moved. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and their presence radiated menace. They communicated telepathically, sending waves of panic coursing through John's mind. "Now!" Samuel shouted, activating the prototype device. A high-pitched whine erupted from the cube, causing the lights in the ship to flicker wildly. The aliens staggered, momentarily disoriented, giving the group a brief window to act. John grabbed a nearby tool, a metal rod protruding from one of the machines, and smashed it against the tank holding Lily. The glass cracked, then shattered, spilling fluid onto the floor. Gently, he pulled his daughter out, cradling her in his arms. She stirred weakly, her eyelids fluttering open. "Dad?" she murmured, her voice barely audible. "It's okay, sweetheart," John whispered, hugging her tightly. "I've got you." But their escape wasn't going to be easy. The aliens recovered quickly, advancing toward them with terrifying speed. Rachel and Samuel tried to fend them off using whatever makeshift weapons they could find, but it was clear they were outnumbered. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, John felt something stir within him, a surge of energy he couldn't explain. Without thinking, he raised his hand, focusing on the aliens' telepathic signals. To his astonishment, the creatures froze, their glowing eyes dimming as though their connection had been severed. What did you do?" Rachel gasped, staring at John in shock. "I don't know," John admitted, equally stunned, but there was no time to dwell on it. Seizing the opportunity, he ushered everyone toward the exit, carrying Lily in his arms. The ship's corridors twisted and turned, making it difficult to retrace their steps, but Samuel's knowledge of alien technology helped guide them. As they neared the portal leading outside, the ship began to destabilize. Alarms blared, and the walls started to ripple violently, threatening to collapse. John realized the prototype device must have triggered a self-destruct mechanism. "Run!" he yelled, urging the others to pick up the pace. They burst out into the cool night air just as the ship imploded behind them, sending a shockwave rippling across the landscape. The explosion lit up the sky, casting an otherworldly glow over the mountains. Exhausted but alive, the group collapsed onto the ground, catching their breath. Lily clung to her father, tears streaming down her face. "I thought I'd never see you again," she sobbed. "You're safe now," John assured her, stroking her hair. "That's all that matters." Though they had escaped, the victory was bittersweet. Samuel explained that the aliens weren't gone. They would regroup and return, stronger than before. Humanity wasn't ready for a war with such advanced beings, and the clock was ticking. But for now, John allowed himself a moment of peace, holding his daughter close and vowing to protect her no matter what came next. Rachel watched the burning wreckage of the ship fade into the horizon. Her expression, grim but resolute. "This isn't over," she said quietly. "Not by a long shot." John nodded, his jaw tightening. He didn't fully understand the powers he had discovered within himself, but he knew one thing for certain. The aliens had made a grave mistake by hurting his daughter, and they would pay for it. The days following their escape from the alien ship were a blur of emotions for John and his companions. They returned to Samuel's secluded cabin, where Lily slowly regained her strength. Her body was weak, but her spirit remained unbroken. She clung to her father, unwilling to let him out of her sight while John did everything he could to reassure her that she was safe. Yet, despite their reunion, a heavy cloud of uncertainty hung over them all. Samuel spent most of his time poring over notes and diagrams, trying to make sense of what had happened aboard the ship. He was particularly fascinated by John's newfound ability to disrupt the aliens' telepathic signals. "It's not natural," Samuel muttered one evening as they sat around the kitchen table. "Humans aren't supposed to be able to do something like that. Not unless—" His voice trailed off and he glanced at John with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Unless what?" Rachel asked, leaning forward. Samuel hesitated before answering. "Unless it's genetic. Maybe you're part of an experiment, or maybe your ancestors were modified somehow. There are old legends about humans being altered to fight off invaders. It sounds crazy, but given what we've seen..." John frowned, processing the idea. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, a simple mechanic living a quiet life. The notion that there might be something extraordinary about him felt surreal, almost impossible to accept. But if Samuel was right, it meant the aliens weren't just predators. They were preparing for war, and somehow humanity had been readying itself too, even if no one remembered. Rachel chimed in, her tone sharp. "If that's true, then why doesn't anyone know about it? Why didn't the government step in when these abductions started happening?" Samuel sighed, rubbing his temples. "Because knowledge is power and dangerous in the wrong hands. If people found out about the aliens, panic would spread like wildfire. Governments probably decided it was better to keep quiet and monitor the situation from the shadows." John listened silently, his mind racing. Whether or not Samuel's theory was correct, one thing was clear. The aliens posed a threat far greater than anyone realized. If humanity stood any chance of surviving, they needed answers, and fast. Their search for information led them back to the ruins of the alien ship. Though much of it had been destroyed in the explosion, fragments of technology remained scattered across the ridge. Samuel believed these remnants could provide valuable insights into the aliens' methods and weaknesses. With Rachel's help, he began collecting samples, while John kept watch, ensuring they weren't ambushed by any surviving creatures. As they sifted through the debris, they stumbled upon something unexpected. A hidden chamber buried beneath the wreckage. Its entrance was partially collapsed, but after some effort, they managed to clear it enough to slip inside. The chamber was small and dimly lit, its walls covered in glowing symbols similar to those they'd seen earlier. In the center stood a pedestal holding a crystalline orb, pulsating softly with light. "This must be important," Rachel whispered, approaching cautiously. "Why else would they guard it so carefully?" Samuel nodded, studying the orb intently. "It's a data storage unit. Probably contains records of their activities here on Earth. If we can decode it, we might learn more about their plans." Decoding. The orb proved difficult, but Samuel's expertise eventually paid off. Using equipment salvaged from his lab, he extracted fragments of information stored within the crystal. What they discovered left them stunned. The aliens weren't merely visiting Earth. They had been observing humanity for centuries, cataloging its evolution and testing its resilience. Their ultimate goal was unclear, but one thing was certain: they viewed humans as inferior, unworthy of coexistence. Among the records was a reference to an ancient artifact buried deep beneath the Earth's surface. According to the data, this artifact had once been used by humans to repel an alien invasion thousands of years ago. Though the details were vague, the implication was clear. Humanity had fought back before, and won. "We need to find it," John declared, his voice firm. "If this artifact exists, it might be our best shot at stopping them." Rachel agreed, though skepticism lingered in her eyes. "Even if it does exist, how are we supposed to locate it? This isn't exactly a treasure map." Samuel smiled faintly, pulling out a weathered book from his bag. "Actually, it kind of is." Flipping through the pages, he revealed detailed maps and diagrams etched onto parchment. "These are blueprints left behind by my ancestors. They dedicated their lives to studying extraterrestrial threats and finding ways to combat them. This artifact is real, and I think I know where to look." Their destination turned out to be an abandoned mine located hundreds of miles away. According to Samuel's maps, the artifact was hidden in a cavern deep underground, protected by traps designed to deter intruders. The journey there was arduous, requiring them to navigate treacherous roads and endure harsh weather conditions. By the time they reached the mine, exhaustion weighed heavily on all of them, but so did hope. The entrance to the mine was dark and foreboding, its mouth yawning like a beast waiting to swallow them whole. Armed with flashlights and tools, they ventured inside, guided by Samuel's instructions. The air grew colder the deeper they went, and the walls seemed to close in around them. Strange carvings adorned the stone, depicting scenes of battle between humans and otherworldly beings. It was eerie, as though the past itself was watching them. After hours of navigating narrow tunnels and avoiding pitfalls, they finally reached the cavern described in the maps. At its center stood a massive stone pedestal, atop which rested the artifact. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a metallic sphere etched with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the darkness. As John approached it, he felt a strange warmth emanating from the object, as though it recognized him. "This is it," Samuel said, his voice filled with awe. "This is what saved us once, and it might save us again." But retrieving the artifact wasn't easy. As soon as John touched it, the ground began to shake violently. Boulders tumbled from the ceiling, forcing them to take cover. A low rumble echoed through the cavern, growing louder with each passing second. It became clear that the structure was collapsing, triggered by some ancient mechanism meant to protect the artifact. "Grab it and run," Rachel shouted, grabbing Lily's hand, and sprinted toward the exit. With the artifact in tow, John followed closely behind, dodging falling debris as they fled. The path back was chaotic, every step fraught with danger. Just as they emerged into the open air, the mine collapsed entirely, sealing the cavern forever. Breathing heavily, they regrouped outside, clutching the artifact like a lifeline. For the first time since their ordeal began, a flicker of hope ignited within them. They still had much to learn about the artifact's purpose and how to use it effectively, but they now had a weapon capable of turning the tide against the aliens. As night fell, John gazed up at the stars, his expression grim yet determined. The aliens thought they had the upper hand, but they underestimated humanity, and they underestimated him. With the artifact in their possession and his mysterious abilities growing stronger each day, John knew they stood a fighting chance. The road ahead would be long and perilous, but he vowed to see it through. For Lily, for Rachel, for Samuel, and for everyone else who deserved a future free from fear. And so, under the vast expanse of the cosmos, John Carter prepared to face whatever came next. The aliens had made their move, but humanity was ready to fight back. The discovery of the artifact changed everything. Back at Samuel's cabin, the group gathered around the metallic sphere, examining it closely. Its intricate patterns glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with an energy that seemed almost alive. John couldn't shake the feeling that the artifact recognized him, as if it had been waiting for someone like him to find it. Samuel worked tirelessly to decipher its purpose, consulting his ancient maps and notes while Rachel assisted by documenting every detail. "It's not just a weapon," Samuel explained one evening, his voice filled with awe. "It's a key, a tool designed to amplify human potential. Whoever created this knew the aliens would come back someday. They left it behind so we'd have a fighting chance." John listened intently, his mind racing. If the artifact could amplify human abilities, then perhaps it could unlock more of the strange powers he had tapped into aboard the alien ship. The thought both excited and terrified him. He wasn't sure he was ready to embrace whatever lay dormant inside him, but he knew he didn't have a choice. Humanity's survival depended on it. Over the next few days, Samuel conducted experiments to test the artifact's capabilities. He placed it in the center of the room, instructing John to focus on it while recalling the moment he disrupted the alien's telepathic signals. At first, nothing happened. Frustration bubbled within John, but Samuel encouraged him to stay calm and trust the process. Slowly, the artifact began to hum, its glow intensifying. A surge of energy coursed through John's body, filling him with a sense of clarity and strength unlike anything he'd ever experienced. "You're doing it," Rachel said, her eyes wide with amazement. "You're connecting with it." John nodded, though the sensation was overwhelming. Memories flooded his mind. Images of ancient battles, humans wielding extraordinary powers to fend off otherworldly invaders. It was as if the artifact was showing him glimpses of humanity's forgotten past, reminding him of what they were capable of achieving together. With each session, John grew stronger. His newfound abilities expanded beyond disrupting telepathic signals. He could now manipulate objects with his mind, create protective barriers, and even heal minor injuries. Lily watched in awe as her father practiced these skills, her fear gradually giving way to pride. Though she still bore scars from her ordeal, seeing her dad transform into something greater gave her hope. Meanwhile, news of the alien threat began spreading across the globe. Rachel published her findings online, exposing the truth about the abductions and the existence of the artifact. Her article sparked outrage and disbelief, but also curiosity. People started coming forward with their own stories of encounters with the creatures, forming a network of survivors determined to fight back. Governments reluctantly acknowledged the danger, though many remained hesitant to act openly. Samuel took charge of organizing efforts to prepare for the inevitable counterattack. Using his knowledge of alien technology and the artifact's potential, he devised strategies to defend against the invaders. Volunteers poured in, eager to contribute however they could. Some helped build makeshift weapons based on designs reverse-engineered from alien debris, while others trained in combat techniques tailored to exploit the aliens' weaknesses. Lily, despite her young age, insisted on helping too. She spent hours sketching constellations and mapping star patterns, searching for signs of the aliens' return. Her keen eye and sharp memory proved invaluable when tracking unusual activity in the skies. "If Dad can fight them, so can I," she declared firmly, refusing to be left behind. As weeks turned into months, tensions mounted. The aliens hadn't made another move, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. John dedicated himself fully to mastering the artifact's power, pushing his limits further each day. He trained alongside volunteers, teaching them how to harness their own latent abilities. Not everyone possessed the same gifts as him, but even small enhancements, heightened reflexes, increased endurance, could make a difference in battle. 1. Night, as John stood outside gazing at the stars, Rachel joined him. "Do you think we're ready?" she asked quietly, her breath visible in the cold air. "We have to be," John replied without hesitation. "They'll come back stronger this time, but we've got something they don't expect, the will to survive." Rachel nodded, though worry lingered in her eyes. "Just promise me one thing. No matter what happens, keep Lily safe." John smiled faintly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I'll do my best, but I know she won't let me shield her completely. She's braver than I give her credit for." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden commotion inside the cabin. Samuel burst out holding a radio receiver. "They're here," he announced grimly. "Multiple ships spotted entering Earth's atmosphere. We need to move. Now." Panic rippled through the group, but John quickly took charge. "Everyone grab your gear and head to the designated rally points. Stick to the plan. We've prepared for this." The next few hours unfolded in a blur of chaos and adrenaline. Alien ships descended upon cities worldwide, unleashing destruction with terrifying efficiency. Their insect-like forms moved with precision, targeting key locations and scattering humanity's defenses. But this time, humanity wasn't defenseless. At the forefront of the resistance was John Carter. Armed with the artifact's power and surrounded by brave volunteers, he led a daring assault against the invaders. His ability to disrupt their telepathic communication crippled their coordination, allowing human forces to strike back effectively. The artifact's energy resonated through the battlefield, empowering those who fought alongside him. Lily, stationed at a safe distance with Rachel, monitored the situation using equipment salvaged from Samuel's lab. Her quick thinking and sharp instincts provided critical intel, guiding the team's movements and anticipating the aliens' next moves. When the tide of battle shifted dangerously, she relayed crucial information that turned the tables in their favor. The final confrontation took place in the heart of the largest city under attack. The aliens' mothership loomed overhead, a colossal monstrosity exuding menace. John faced it head-on, channeling the artifact's full power into a devastating assault. Beams of light erupted from his hands, striking the vessel and causing it to tremble violently. Inside, the alien commanders scrambled to retaliate, but their efforts were futile against humanity's united front. With a deafening roar, the mothership collapsed, sending shockwaves rippling across the landscape. The remaining alien forces retreated, their once invincible aura shattered. Cheers erupted among the survivors as they realized they had won, for now. In the aftermath, John stood amidst the ruins, his body weary but his spirit unbroken. Lily ran to him, throwing her arms around his waist. "We did it, Dad," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yeah, we did," John replied, hugging her tightly. "But this isn't the end. There's still work to be done." Rachel approached, smiling despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "You've given people hope, John. That's more than anyone could have asked for." Samuel nodded in agreement, his expression thoughtful. "This victory proves we're stronger together. As long as we remember that, we'll always stand a chance." Under the watchful gaze of the stars, humanity began rebuilding. The scars of war ran deep, but so did the resolve to protect what mattered most. For John Carter, the journey had transformed him from a simple mechanic into a symbol of courage and resilience. He had faced unimaginable odds and emerged victorious, not because of his powers, but because of the love he held for his daughter, and the belief that no force, no matter how powerful, could extinguish the light of humanity. And as he looked up at the endless expanse above, John knew one thing for certain. If the aliens ever returned, they would find Earth ready and unwilling to surrender.